Welcome to the Real World. My name is Cameron. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Real World Podcast, episode 116, where we're talking all about the best horror sequels. Thank you very much for joining us here on the Real World YouTube channel. Make sure you hit that like button down there. Also hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and hit the bell so you get notified of all our videos. We're all about movies here. We're going to see the new movies in theaters. We're watching stuff on streaming and tons of Blu-ray reviews here as well. If you're into Blu-ray or 4K, we've got all that covered for you. So you're in the right spot if that's what you're looking for. We want to have a conversation with you about this art form of cinema that's been around for over 100 years, that we've explored on this channel over the past couple years, and we will continue to do so. Today we're talking about horror sequels because Smile 2 is now in theaters. So that is one that is doing pretty well at the box office. So we want to have a conversation with you about all these movies. Joining me on this episode, he's back. It is Mr. Burt. How you doing, sir?
Hey Cam, I'm doing great. How about you?
I am doing well. We're excited to have you back talking about this topic. As people who follow the podcast know, you're more of the horror guy.
I watch a lot of
So
them. Yeah.
yeah. So this is going to be an interesting conversation because I've got, I think, some more outside the box picks that people might not even really consider horror, but I consider horror for this list specifically. So it should be a fun conversation. It's going to be a good mix of different types of movies we're going to be talking about today. So let's get started. All right, folks, we're just going to jump right in. Not a lot to talk about. Again, horror sequels, kind of a fairly broad topic, I think. Especially when you consider horror comedy, you can consider horror, all kinds of different things. Like I said, we're going to have a kind of wide variety here, I feel like. So Bert, you're the horror guy. I'm going to, let you go first. I went first last time on our robot podcast. So why don't you just jump right in? Give us your very first pick for your number one horror sequel of all time.
Yeah, and we're doing a draft, so this is our draft pick. So we're
Yes.
trying to build the best list and so I'll start us
Yeah.
off with one I just saw a couple days ago here,
Oh.
Alien Romulus.
Oh, wow. Okay, great. Yeah. Oh man, that's a good one.
Yeah, and let me say your coverage of it along with Carson was and Ben, right?
Oh yeah.
Was very informative and fun to watch because I
Good.
agreed so much with it.
Okay.
And I'll say too, I like pretty much all of the Alien films, but none of them are, 4 or 5 star films. Like even Alien 2, they're probably 3.5 star. And
Okay.
I've seen them a few times. This one took it up to another level for me.
Oh
Um,
wow.
I mean, you're talking about, I'm putting this above every other horror sequel I've ever seen.
Great. Yeah.
And on top of that, I don't think it'll make my top 10 horror, like just straight horror
Okay.
films,
Okay.
but amongst sequels,
Right.
um,
Right.
this was the 1 and 2 were tough, but I did put it at
Yeah.
one because
Mm,
I mean, really, I can't wait to see it again. I don't say that
yeah.
about too many horror movies.
Sure.
And like I said, your coverage is really good, but this was just a
Yeah.
really kind of fresh take on the Alien franchise.
Yes.
Um, Many times it felt scary.
Oh yeah.
Actually scary.
Right.
It was very intense. I loved, Andy the android,
Yes.
which
Yes.
I find it interesting. In Bicentennial Man, the android is called Andrew,
Oh
and here
right.
he's
Yeah.
he's Andy.
Right.
So I don't know if that was something that occurred to them. We can't say Andrew, but we can maybe do
Right.
Andy.
Right. That's funny.
And you talked in your review about the world building.
Yeah.
Is fantastic.
Right.
It's fun when you watch a movie like that because when you see it happening as it unfolds, you're like, wow, I'm really getting immersed. You can feel yourself getting immersed in this kind of world in a way we
Yeah.
haven't before, I feel, in the Alien series.
Right.
Um,
I
a
agree.
great soundscape in this film, some really
Mm.
interesting musical choices,
Yep.
great special effects. I actually
Yeah.
cared about the characters.
Right.
Just some really fun stuff too. The artificial gravity stuff with the floating
Yes.
acid.
Right. Right.
They show the how the gravity is turned on and off early on, and you're like,
Uh-huh.
I bet you
Right.
that'll factor in. But the way
Right.
it happens is
Yeah.
amazing. I
It
mean,
is.
why haven't they done this before in the Alien
Yeah.
series?
Right.
So, honestly, okay. So here's the thing. This is basically a 5 star film.
Oh
However,
wow.
I don't like to give a film 5 stars the first time, so I'm at four
Sure.
and a half. And I have a
Okay.
rule. I don't know about
Okay.
you. There's certain things that if they happen in a movie, not a lot, maybe one or two things, I deduct like half a point or a point.
Okay.
And normally, if they show a character throwing up and they show it,
Oh. Hmm.
that's a half point right there, as a rule, basically.
Okay.
But for this film, the whole film has so much of that stuff that I just waived
Yeah.
it and still
Right.
stay at 4.5 points.
Awesome. Great. Well, I'm really glad you enjoyed it so much. Yeah, it is definitely one of my favorites of the year that I've seen thus far. It is really solid, really well made. Yeah, there's so many unique things about it that it almost, in some ways, also feels like a greatest hits of the Alien franchise in many ways, because
Hmm.
there are certain
Hmm.
things that they bring back,
Sure. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
again, it's done in a unique way,
It
you
didn't feel like
know.
retread. No, it didn't feel like
Yeah, it
retread.
really didn't to me either. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think this is definitely the way to do a great sequel, or I guess prequel. It's kind of takes place between the first and second Alien,
I heard that.
after
Yeah.
Prometheus and all that, and so it's kind of stuck in the middle of the franchise in a unique way. But
Yeah.
it was really good. I agree. Really liked all the characters and where they went with it. It was really good. So yeah, I'm really glad you enjoyed it as much as we did. Excellent, great first pick. I mean, a 2024 film right off the bat. That's a
I know.
surprise for sure, but that's a
Yeah.
welcome surprise. So
Yeah.
good. Um, all right, we'll move on to my first pick. I'm going way back to the early days of horror. I'm a
Oh.
huge fan of the Universal monster movies, right?
Oh, right.
Dracula and Wolfman and Creature from the Black Lagoon, all those great old black and white movies. And many of them got sequels, but none of them are nearly as popular as Bride of Frankenstein. That's my
Oh.
number one pick. Bride of
Okay.
Frankenstein is one of those movies that I really wasn't expecting a lot going in. I'm like, a sequel to Frankenstein? Why does that need a sequel? If you know how that movie ends, it kind of feels like it's a pretty definitive ending. It doesn't really need a sequel at all. But I actually think this is better than the first Frankenstein movie.
Hmm.
As classic as that film is, and as great as it is, this one really takes the character of the Frankenstein's monster character and makes him more of a character, makes him more of a person. He's kind of trying to discover his humanity, and he's interacting with all these other people. There's this little girl who interacts with them, then there's this old man who interacts with them, and it's really interesting to see how they build that character as he's kind of like discovering what human beings are and what he is and all these different things. It's really fascinating and a lot more deep and kind of psychological than I would have ever expected an old, Universal monster movie to be. So it's actually probably might be my favorite of all the Universal monster films. And it's
Hmm.
kind of funny though, because the bride herself doesn't really show up until the very end of the movie, even though it's called Bride of Frankenstein.
Oh.
She's essentially
Hmm.
only in like two scenes in the whole movie. So it's kind of funny that they called it that, even though she's not really a major character. But nonetheless, it's a really good film, really well made. It's been
Wow.
parodied. Of course, if you've seen Young Frankenstein, you've seen many of the scenes from this movie done in a kind
Hmm.
of comedic way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's really interesting though to go back and watch it how it was, originally made, and it still holds up pretty well. So it's one that I've returned to a number of times, and I really, really enjoy it. So Bride of Frankenstein, that's my number one.
That's a good pick. Yeah. Yeah, obviously love Young Frankenstein. I haven't seen The Bride of Frankenstein.
Okay.
I never heard anybody else talk about it, so maybe it's worth checking out at this point then.
Now you have. So yeah, you gotta
Yeah.
watch it and tell me what you think. Okay, Bert, we're on to your number two. What do you got there?
Okay, there I'm gonna pull from the Paranormal Activity series.
Oh yeah.
As you know, I'm a huge fan of that. That's probably my favorite horror series is
Right.
Paranormal Activity.
Yeah.
Except for the first one. If people start watching it and they're like, this Paranormal Activity one isn't that great. It really isn't.
Okay.
It's okay. But the
Okay.
ones after that are so they get really, really good. And so
Okay.
I'm gonna choose, I think it's the fifth one. It's called The Ghost Dimension.
Oh, okay. Cool.
And all these films are found footage,
Yeah.
and they use it's not the herky jerky style.
Right.
They tap into like it's usually the security camera footage from people's houses.
Right.
Like they have
Right.
indoor cams
Okay.
apparently everywhere. And so
Right.
that's the footage they use. So we don't have to worry about
Okay.
like the shaky cam in these movies.
Right.
But and it usually follows the family that has, this activity happening, and then you know there's scenes where they get scared. They sort of gradually ramp up the scares,
Right.
and as the viewer, you get scared too. And this is a pretty scary film.
Yeah.
And the reason I picked this one is because it's kind of the culmination of the first four films, and then
Mm,
this film. It
yeah.
kind of culminates in some ways because the families in each of the films are there's always a connection,
Right.
and so this is kind of the culmination of it. And then on top of that, I think I told you about this one before, but the family that moves into this house, they find this, I don't know, 1980s camcorder,
Oh, okay.
and when they look through the viewfinder of the camcorder, you can see, and then they let the audience see it too. You
Yeah.
can see like these like particles floating in the air, and
Ah,
then which that's kind of related to the scares too.
okay.
And then it's in through, if you have 3D, the
Oh,
particles are in 3D, so
oh,
the
wow.
depth is amazing,
Yeah,
and so
yeah.
of course that adds to it as well. So I can't discount that, and so
Sure.
yeah, it's. I mean, there's several others that are good too in that series, but yeah, I went with the Ghost Dimension from Paranormal
Okay.
Activity.
Excellent. Yeah, I still have yet to even watch the first one, so I definitely have those on the watch list and want to check them out. So cool. Yeah, I'll definitely make sure I watch up into at least the fifth one because I think there isn't there like seven or eight or nine or
There's seven, I think.
okay.
And these aren't films that have like some films just have so much nonsense in the horror movie that
Yeah.
you're just like, what is
Sure.
this,
Right.
So
Right.
if you want something that's just a little bit scary here and
Yeah.
there, and some,
Right.
occasionally like really scary, but otherwise it's sort of a normal, you're like watching a family and what they're
Okay.
doing about going about
Yeah.
their normal day. If you like
Right.
found footage, I think you'd like
Yeah.
these films.
Yeah, I definitely do. So I definitely will be checking those out. That's neat. Okay, excellent. All right. Well, moving on to my number two. Um, Mixing it up a little bit, going away from traditional horror into more of a modern, very unique take on the genre. It's Sam Raimi's Army of Darkness.
Oh, nice. Yeah, this one's on my
Yeah.
list.
Is
I
it?
don't, yeah,
Okay.
it's a few down.
Okay.
But yeah, that was definitely a good one.
Yeah, that those movies are so much fun. I like all three of them, and they're all unique in that, the first one's more of a straight horror movie made in the
Hmm.
woods for no budget. The second one, they had a little bit more of a budget to work with, and they
Yeah,
kind of leaned into the zany kind of comedy of it. And
right.
then this third one pretty much is almost an all-out comedy.
Yes.
It's really not a whole lot of horror in it. There's horror elements, I guess, like
Uh-huh.
he's fighting skeletons and stuff like that, but it's not really taken seriously at all.
Yeah.
And so this one's my favorite. It's always been my favorite ever since I watched the trilogy all the way through. Although I did rewatch the second one just to make sure I didn't want to put that one above this because I have a fondness for the second one too, and just kind of how wacky it is. Um, but the third one I think is definitely still my favorite. It's all medieval setting, so it's a time travel movie, and
Hmm.
Bruce Campbell's performance I think is just perfect, and all the
Hmm.
insane effects that they have in this. They're using miniatures and they're using forced perspective and all these different kinds of elements before the CGI days.
Love it. Yeah.
So yeah, this one is definitely my favorite, so it had to make the list.
Mm.
It's just tons of fun. It's just one of those movies I can pop in anytime and have a blast with watching. So yeah, one of the Evil Deads was going to make it. It ended up being Army of Darkness.
Nice.
All right, Bert, we can move on if you're ready to your number three. What do you have there?
That's where I put Jurassic World.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
Jurassic. Yeah.
Really enjoy this one. Looking at the Jurassic series two, part two, The Lost World, I love that first half, but the second half to me kind of falls apart a little bit. Not entirely. I mean, I
Sure.
probably still give it 4 stars.
Okay.
So I like that one a lot too. Jurassic World, I feel like the world itself feels a little bigger. I like
Yeah.
some of the tech they use. I
Okay.
like,
Yeah.
again, the characters, the new ones they introduced, Chris Pratt,
Mm.
um, and Dallas Bryce Howard are really good. Some of the scenes involving like those, I don't know what they're called, the big giant balls that they're riding,
Oh yeah, it's like a
the kids are riding in.
gyrosphere or something. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Some of the scenes involving that are so much fun.
Yeah.
I won't say the CGI is 1,000% on, but it's good enough. And there's some great dinosaur action. None of it's really ever very scary, but a
Mm.
great horror movie doesn't have to be the scariest movie, right?
Sure.
And so for a great all around horror sequel, I do actually put Jurassic World as the best Jurassic film, and I drafted at number 3.
Excellent. Great pick. Yeah, Jurassic, that's a really fun series. We've done a whole podcast on all six Jurassic Park and Jurassic World movies. Might have to do it again with this new one coming out,
Right.
Rebirth, that they've just finished shooting. We may have to revisit that franchise in the future because it's a fun one.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to my number three. I'm gonna put Guillermo del Toro's Hellboy 2: The Golden Army
Oh, you
in
took another
there.
one of mine.
Oh, did I really? Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, man, the Hellboy movies are so much fun. Del Toro is
Yeah.
just a master of horror, which he's done, movies that are just standalone movies that are horror, like Pan's Labyrinth or Devil's
Yeah.
Backbone, Kronos. All are really well made horror movies. But um, Hellboy 2, again, it's a comic book movie first and foremost, right? But it definitely has horror elements, these weird creatures and frightening
Mhm.
sequences, where Hellboy's having to battle all these weird creatures that are just so unique in their design and everything. And the world
Yeah.
that Del Toro builds in those films is just so vibrant and alive. It's really cool. He, of course, utilizes a lot of practical effects. So there's a lot of, makeup prosthetics and
Yeah.
things like that going on alongside the CGI, which I think always kind of helps sell the thing. So yeah, big fan of Hellboy 1. Hellboy 2, I think, is a better movie. And it had to make the list. So yeah, it's in there at number three.
And I like two better than one. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I do. I do. I
You
really
do?
think it
Okay.
is a better
Yeah.
movie. Yeah, I agree. Okay, so what's your number four now, Bert?
Okay. I'm going with 2021's Army of the Dead by Zack Snyder.
Oh, nice. Yeah, see, you know what? That's a great point. I didn't actually really think of it as a sequel, but I think he has said it's like a spiritual successor
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
Dawn of the Dead, which is the
Right.
first movie he ever made.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. And definitely kind of in the same universe.
Yeah,
Army of the Dead having a much bigger budget, I think.
right.
And th this one's just so much fun. It's so colorful. I love all the
Oh,
color.
yeah.
I'm someone that likes a lot of rich color in film,
Yes.
often. And it's just got some great set pieces. But this destruction of Vegas is just
Mm,
incredible early on. And then it's just a really intense film. I mean,
yeah,
you really kind of feel nervous for the characters throughout. You never know what's going to happen, or
right.
everyone's kind of on the table for being taken out,
Right.
which makes it a little more intense,
Yeah, yeah.
some great performances. Dave Bautista really impressed me. I think this
Mm,
is the first time I'd seen him not in Guardians of the Galaxy, and I was
yeah,
like, oh, he's actually a pretty good actor.
he is. Yeah.
Surprised me. And then Tig Notaro, the whole thing about her coming in after the fact, and
Right.
and she's got so many funny lines the way she plays the character.
Right.
And there's some really touching scenes though.
Yeah.
So yeah, I put it as high as it is because of the scares and the look of the film. It's just so good.
Yeah, I agree. Very uniquely shot, shallow depth of field. He did most of it handheld camera himself. Zack Snyder is the
Mm,
DP on the movie too, so he
wow.
literally was carrying the camera around while he's directing and everything. And yeah, I've seen some behind the scenes footage. It's really neat how they made this movie. And so yeah, I can't fault you for it. That's a really solid pick, as good as zombie action gets, really.
Yeah,
One of
yeah,
my
I think
favorites
so.
in that kind of subgenre. So
Great payoffs.
yeah, for sure, for sure. All right, on to my number four. It's going to be Joe Dante's Gremlins 2, The New
Okay.
Batch. I
All
am a
right.
huge fan of this movie. Finally got to listen to the commentary this week, and it was tons of fun. They just talked about how they were just basically going as silly and wacky as they could. They kind of wanted to make a live
Hmm.
action Looney Tunes, basically, was kind of their
Okay.
their goal here. So it's different from the first, very different from the first film, which I would say leans more into the horror elements, whereas this one brings the comedy again more to the forefront. Not to say there isn't any scary moments. There's a lot of different types of gremlins in this film. So they're not all like, the gremlins we see in the first one. There's gremlins that
Okay.
fly, there's gremlins with like spider legs, there's all these weird
Oh,
different types of gremlins in the movie. And
gotcha.
so that's a lot of fun just to see that kind of what they've come up with as far as that goes. And then it's kind of this funny meta commentary on corporatism and the whole idea of
Oh,
movie studios and making sequels and making, products and different things like this, because it all takes place in this corporate building, which is essentially
okay.
like a mall. It's just very funny. It's a very kind of funny idea that they came up with, and I think they executed it really well. Zach Galligan comes back as Billy from the first one, and Phoebe Cates comes back, and
Okay.
so you've got a couple of returning characters, but a lot of new characters. John Glover's in there; he does a really good job, and so it's a really fun movie to watch. Another one that's kind of more of an easy watch than your typical horror sequel, and yeah, just kind of went in a radically different direction that I kind of have to just give them props for.
Hmm.
And so yeah, Gremlins 2 definitely made the list, so it's in at number 4.
I'm gonna have to catch those sometime. I think I watched part one, back when it came out or something,
Okay.
but I've never seen part two.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun. Like I said, they're the first and second are very different, but they're it makes a great double feature if you watch them back to back. All right,
Nice.
Bert, we're at your number 5. What do you have there?
I'm going with It Chapter Two.
Oh man, I had that one on my list. That is a
Right.
good movie.
I don't think I've ever started out by reading my own review, but the very first paragraph kind of cracked myself up. So I'll read it. It's
Sure.
short. I said, "This film is about reflection, treasured and timeless friendships, and that killer clown." Yeah.
That's awesome. That's a great review.
Yeah, and it's such a well-made, well, two films really. They're both
Yeah,
very well made.
right.
I do actually think two is even better because you got now this the older cast, and so you got both casts, and then
Yes.
and still both these films are truly horrifying at times.
Oh yeah.
Really, really scary. I mean,
Oh yeah.
stuff that out of my nightmares
Right.
that they
Yes,
pull off very, very effectively.
they do.
So there is some really good scares in it.
Hmm.
There's a fair amount of humor,
Mm.
but it's really the character work here and the
Yep.
acting that just, I mean, it may be the best made, film on this list as far as that goes. I
Yeah,
just don't
sure.
revisit it a lot because it is tough to endure
Yeah.
sometimes.
Right.
It's rewarding, but at the same
Yeah.
time, I don't watch this one every year.
No.
I got to prepare myself,
Right.
you know?
I agree completely. Yeah, it's so well made. Andy Muschietti directed it, and the cast, like you're saying, having that young cast and then having a perfect translation from young to old, like,
Yeah.
McAvoy and Bill Hader and Jessica Chastain, they did perfect casting on both ends there. And
Chemistry.
yeah, the chemistry's there. The like you said, the character development is there. It's a real story. You really get invested in the characters, like you're saying, and what they're going through, rather than just scares and gore or whatever. It tells a really compelling story. So yeah, I was very surprised actually by the It movies when I heard about them. I was not very interested, the killer clown idea. I was like, I'm not into that, but it's a lot more than that, and so that's
Yes.
what surprised me and made me a big fan of both of those. And I agree that the second one is actually superior to the first. So yeah, excellent choice. It was on my list. It was just a few down on my list, so took one of mine. But I'll go with my number 5, which is the one I have next. It's a sequel, a long-awaited sequel. The original film is called The Shining in
Oh, okay.
1980, and this is Doctor Sleep, which came out in 2019. And wow, what an incredible film! Again, I would say this is one of the most well-made films on this list.
Hmm.
Just as far as the cinematography goes and the lighting and the editing, the effects, all of it just it looks absolutely outstanding. So it's a movie again, not one I revisit too often because it is pretty intense.
Yeah.
Um, but it's so well made, and again the performances. It's Ewan McGregor, one of my favorites, who I talk about a lot, and Rebecca Ferguson, who many people know
Mm,
from the Mission Impossible movies.
yeah.
She's the villain here, and she does a great
Oh,
job. It's really, really good. It's very well done, and it pays proper respect to the original, builds off of it in a really
mm.
compelling way. It's about the young boy Danny from that
Oh,
film growing
right.
up, and so
Okay.
what kind of he's going through now in his adult life, and so yeah, another compelling kind of character journey we go on with him
Yeah.
throughout the film. So yeah, definitely worth watching. You haven't seen that one?
No, how scary is it? Is it scary like the first one at
Yeah,
times?
yeah, it is at times.
Okay.
It's not exactly, I would say, the same vibe necessarily all the way
Okay.
through,
Yeah.
but it definitely has moments like that. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Good. Good.
All right, Bert. On to your number six. What do you have there?
At 6, I will draft 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Ah, another one of mine. Yeah, that's a good movie.
This one's so much fun. I
Yeah.
wish I could go back and not remember what happens at the end, right?
Right, right, right.
Watch it again for the first time
Yep.
because it keeps you guessing.
Hmm.
The acting is on point. One of John Goodman's best roles.
Definitely.
And I love we've seen a few bunker kind of films, and
Oh
it's
yeah.
always fun to explore it and see, what
Right.
that's about and how they sustain and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's great. Some great payoffs. That
Yep.
ending.
Mm.
I just wish I don't want to give it away. I just wish
Sure.
that some of the ending matched some of the ending of the first Cloverfield, as far
Oh,
as
sure.
the
Yes, I know
look.
what you
That's all I'll
mean.
say. But
Hmm.
yeah,
Yep.
but otherwise, yeah, this one's a very rewarding and fun one.
Yes, I agree completely. Yes, such a fun watch, a great thriller, claustrophobic thriller. You're just in that bunker the
Yeah.
whole time with them and just like, what's going on? You don't know what's going on outside. Yeah,
Yeah.
great, great movie. Definitely a unique sequel, because like you're saying, it kind of doesn't really tie in. I mean, it kind of does, but not as much as maybe those of us who really like the first one wanted it to, but
Yeah, exactly.
it's still a really, really well-made movie. So
Yeah. Yeah.
excellent. We're gonna move on now to a part two of a recent
Oh.
franchise, which is I'm probably taking one of yours. It's Quiet Place Part Two.
Oh, it's on my list.
Okay.
I don't know if it's in my top 10 though. But yeah, it's
Okay.
definitely not too far away. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a big fan of this. I
Yeah.
go back and forth all the time with which one I like more, honestly,
Really?
because I really
Oh,
do, because I think the second one, like any good, to me, part two implies more that you're continuing the story, which they really
gotcha.
are. I mean, they're literally picking up exactly where the first
Sure.
one left off.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, the children, it's really, this one's more about the kids, right? It's like they have to kind of come of age and do these incredibly brave, courageous things in order for their family to survive. So I really like that aspect of it. I like that the daughter kind of really becomes, more of a focal point as she goes on this journey on her own. And Emily Blunt is fantastic as always. The young boy, I think his name's Noah Jupe. He's been in a few other things. I really liked his role. I liked Cillian Murphy. He was a whole new character that came into this film
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
and was a totally kind of new dynamic with him, and what he had going on. His own backstory was really compelling. And so I felt like this sequel was kind of like the perfect sequel to A Quiet Place. Like I couldn't think of a better way to continue with those characters. Again, focusing more on the kids and them kind of growing up, and bigger, crazier action sequences. There's a whole scene in the water, which I think is fantastic and super scary. And
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
so there's a lot of things about this movie that I like. Again, I go back and forth because that first one is so good, but I think this is pretty much on the same level with the first one for me.
Hmm. Yeah. And that first scene in the second one where John Krasinski's still in it because it's prior to it's
Yes.
basically day one, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Like
Day one from their perspective. Yeah.
yeah, and that part I love.
Yeah.
It's just that and then the rest of the movie's pretty like dark, meaning like a lot of it's at night
True. Yeah.
and I feel like if a horror movie can be effective and scare you in the daytime, then
Yeah.
that's quite a feat. And that's
Good
why I
point.
think one is a little better.
Okay. Okay. I gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, Bert, give us your number seven. What do you have there?
Going with The Mummy Returns.
Oh, man, that was my next pick.
Oh no. Hey, I can
That's
trade
okay.
it for that and a second round pick if you want. No.
That's okay. You can have it. You can have it. It's The Mummy Returns. Here's my 2 cents on The Mummy Returns.
Sure.
It's a great sequel. I
Yeah.
really enjoy everything about it. I've watched it numerous times, but it's
Yeah.
still not as good as the first one. The first one's just too
Oh,
good.
right. True.
So
True.
that's why it's a little lower. I originally had it actually a little bit higher, but I was like, it's not really as good as it. I was trying to put all the ones that are better than the first up top and
Hmm.
then have other ones later. But go ahead and give us your thoughts on second Mummy movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the action's a little better, but
Okay.
otherwise, it's just kind of more of the same. I mean,
Right.
I already like the cast so much, um,
Yes.
so it's another adventure. Gotta love the Scorpion King and his bad CGI and all of it.
Yes.
But
Yes.
yeah, I mean that's really it too. There's not a lot to say about it. I like
Mm.
how they sort of tied into the first one in a lot of ways, and
Yes.
yeah, just more of the same.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's
Good
solid.
stuff.
It's the cast. For me, that cast is so perfect. Between Brendan
Yeah.
Fraser and Rachel Weisz, it just doesn't get any better than that. They're one of my favorite movie couples of all time. And now they have a little boy who gets up to no good, and you have to rescue him all the time. So
Right.
it's tons of fun. Okay, excellent. Well, I guess I'll go to my next pick, which is my favorite of George Romero's zombie
Oh,
trilogy, which
okay.
is Day of the Dead, not Dawn of the
Okay.
Dead,
Okay.
which was, as we alluded to, remade by Zack Snyder.
Hmm.
This is the third film that George
Okay.
Romero made back in the 80s when he was making all these movies. The original, of course, is Night of the Living Dead, which is sort of
Yeah.
like
Yeah. I've
hailed as
seen
like
that one.
one of the best original zombie movies. But he made this third one after Dawn of the Dead, which is really cool. Takes place in the mall. It's a fun movie. It's a little meandering. I didn't feel like it was as well paced, which is I think why Zack Snyder's is actually better.
Wait,
Um,
did you say it takes place in a mall also?
the original Dawn of the Dead, yeah, it
It
does.
does. I
But
didn't know
Day,
that.
yeah.
Oh,
But
okay.
the one I'm picking is Day of the Dead, which is the third one. Does not take place in a mall. It takes place
Oh,
kind of
gotcha.
post-apocalypse. Everyone's living underground in these little
Oh,
bunkers.
okay. Oh,
So this one
sounds
is
different.
really cool. Yeah, it's different. And it's very different as far as not only the setting, but of course, we got a whole new cast of characters. And what they're doing with the zombies is they're kind of like they've captured some zombies and they've kind of put them in these rooms where they're chained up and they're kind of just
Oh,
watching how they behave.
really? Huh.
It's a really unique zombie thing that I haven't really
Huh.
seen in any other zombie movie, I don't think.
Yeah.
Um, but it's really
Did you?
interesting. One of the zombies really is the main character because you're kind of following
Oh,
him, and his experience with all this as you're
gotcha.
juxtaposing that with the humans. So it's really just a very different type of a zombie
Hmm.
thing that I've ever seen. So I would say
Gotcha.
it's his best of those first three that he did,
Okay.
and it's still got some pretty solid action sequences in it too. The makeup and everything is of course even better. They just get better each movie. And so yeah, I would highly recommend this if you're a zombie fan. This is, I would say, one of the must-see zombie movies of all time. It's really good.
Yeah, I need to see two and three because I know I would like those.
Yeah.
I like Night of the Living Dead too.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, a little bit off from what you were talking about, but
Mhm.
the part two that was in the mall, are there
Yeah.
a lot of correlations between that and Zack Snyder's film or no?
Yeah, I mean he remade it. So it's basically the same
Okay.
kind of basic plot. It's
Is it?
just I
Okay.
think he puts
Yeah.
in Zach put in new character. I don't think the character dynamics were the same.
Okay.
He inserted like all kinds of different characters in his.
Yeah.
And I think the ending is even different too, if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken. So
Nice.
yeah, but
Okay.
it's kind of got that basic structure of we're stuck in a mall, zombies are surrounding us, and we have to survive, that kind of idea. All right, Bert, that was my number seven. Now we're on to your number eight. What do you have there?
At eight, I'm going with Ghost Rider 2,
Oh,
Electric
you
Boogaloo.
took another one of mine.
Yeah, sorry
Oh
about that.
man,
I know you like
that's
this one
okay.
a lot too. We've
Yeah,
had
this
some fun
one's
with this one.
we have. Yeah, this is one of my what was it? We call it defending bad movies.
Oh, okay.
This was one of my picks there.
Yeah, well, I mean, the first one I certainly do not like. I don't
Yeah,
know how much I disliked it, but I just remember not
right,
liking it and
right,
thinking the two's got to be worse. I mean, there's no way this is, and then
right.
it actually is really good.
It
But it's
is
a lot different kind of film too.
right. It
I mean, it
is. It's
starts
true.
off almost looking like a Bourne film, from the Bourne series.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
I wouldn't say it
Yeah.
maintains that tone,
Hmm.
but the acting's so much better.
Yeah.
The visuals are just absolutely stunning.
Yes.
Decent plot. Nick
Right.
Cage. Um, it's just a little different the second time around, I feel like. And he's, you got to, when he's doing kind of an out there role,
Hmm.
which he does quite a bit,
Right.
um, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So, like, I recently saw Long Legs. I don't know if you've heard of
Oh,
that one.
yeah.
That one did
Never
not work
watched
for
it.
me.
Okay.
Kind of similarly zany, but in a
Right.
different way. He's got so
Hmm.
many different ways he can take a character.
Yes, yes,
But it worked
yes.
in this one. It really worked
Oh
in this
yeah.
one. The zaniness and
Uh-huh.
craziness, it works. So either works for you, it doesn't. And
Right.
I really like this one.
Yeah, I like to call this Cage Uncaged, because he's just let loose to go wild with this character. And
Yeah,
yeah, it
yeah.
perfectly fits, the tone and what they're going for here. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's definitely a superior sequel to the first, and one of my favorites, one I've watched many, many times before. And Idris Elba's great in it, and Kieran
Yeah, yeah,
Hines is in it, and it's a really, really good cast. A lot of fun action sequences there.
yeah.
So excellent. Well, let's jump now into another franchise that's been ongoing for a while. It's the Predator franchise.
Okay.
And my favorite Predator movie, even above the original, is Prey.
Oh, okay,
That new
sure. Yeah,
prequel,
yeah.
I just think is
That was
so
decent.
good. It's so well made. It's such a unique way to take that franchise
Yeah.
way in the past, with this unique culture. And it's really interesting what they did with that. And this is a Hulu, made for Hulu movie. I think it was actually going to be a theatrical release and they moved it to Hulu.
Oh,
I think
okay.
it was during the whole Fox Disney merger thing. It was kind of caught in that whole mess, but
Yeah.
you can watch it on Hulu right now. You can actually watch it in the native language. I believe it's the Comanche language. There's
Wow.
an alternate language track, which I watched. Really cool to watch it that
Huh.
way. But really well done. Amber Midthunder is the lead here, and she does a great job. Really, really good performance she delivers here. Some great action. Takes some kind of unexpected twists and turns throughout the story,
Mhm.
and I think kind of to me in the sequels they kind of the Predator, it wasn't quite as threatening as he was in that first movie because you saw him a lot,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
this one they went back to like kind of hiding him a lot and
Sure.
doing that whole thing, which I think was really smart. And he has different technology. Like he doesn't have like the lasers and all the craziness that he has in the other movies. He's got like a shield. He's got like a spear thing he uses. And so I thought that
Yeah.
was cool to kind of just change it up a little bit. That's what that franchise needed.
Yeah.
Take it back to kind of a small scale, more of a horror thriller vibe to it, which I thought was cool. So yeah, I'm a big fan of that movie. And so Prey made the list. Director of this, by the way, did 10 Cloverfield Lane. So he's got now
Wow.
two on our list. Dan Trachtenberg, really talented guy. Can't wait to see what he does next. Um,
Yeah.
all right, that was my eight. Now, Bert, we're on to your number nine.
Okay, so at number 9, I think I'm going to go with a much lesser known series
Okay.
called Phantasm, and I'm going to go with Phantasm
Oh,
2.
okay. So yeah, I've seen Phantasm 1. I've still not
Okay, okay.
seen 2, but it's pretty good.
Yeah, yeah. It's it's an 80s horror movie, it's got a
Sure.
lot of dated things going on in it. But
Right.
what and 2, by the way, has a much bigger budget, and so they can do a
Oh,
little more with it.
yeah.
But it's got so many unique things in it that I really don't get from other horror movies. One of
Right.
those fun things is those little flying
Oh,
cylinders that go
yeah.
around, and no telling how exactly they fly because they don't look like drones. But anyway,
Right.
uh, controlled by the will of evil or something, right?
Right.
And they fly around the corridors of places and attack people. And then I don't know. There's just different aspects like that. Like there's a portal at one point
Mm,
that you can pass through and stuff. Just kind of
right.
some fun stuff.
Yeah.
This is probably the only film I put in my top 10 that I haven't watched recently,
Okay.
because I'm trying to find a place to watch it again. But
Yeah.
I had to shout out to that because when I was much younger, that
Sure.
was one of my favorite all-time horror films, and it's so
Okay.
unique. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I had to put it in there.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely seek that one out because, like I said, I think the first one's great. I think it's very underrated. So yeah, I'm curious to see where they went with the sequel on that one. Um, okay, we're gonna move into another big popular franchise, one that actually crosses over with my last pick, Predator. It's Aliens. So I went with the
Okay,
second Alien
sure.
movie. To me, it's one of the best sequels ever made. I think it's one of James Cameron's best movies. I would put it right up there with T2 as one of his best.
Wow.
I think Sigourney Weaver is might be her best performance. I think she's great in this. And the whole cast, of course, Bill Paxton and Michael Biehn and all of them. They're just really, really great mix of characters, a great dynamic that each one of them has. They each have very um, unique personalities. You know, Paxton is kind of the crazy man, freaking out at every single thing that happens, and
Yeah.
Michael Bihn's
Yeah.
kind of the straight man. You know, and then you know, Sigourney Weaver's character Ellen Ripley, she goes through a unique arc where she kind of becomes a mom basically throughout the film. And
Yeah.
the young character Newt, I think, is fantastic too. Her line readings are just so iconic and memorable. So great lines here, great writing, the action, the effect. Of course, this one again is another one where it's an example of a sequel getting a bigger budget, so they can do a lot more with the effects. I mean, it's kind of amazing what they were able to do with the effects, the creatures and the animatronics and the puppetry and all the different things that they did here are really groundbreaking and hold up really well today. Again, because it's all done in camera. It's all real stuff. It's pre
Yeah.
CGI
Yeah.
stuff. So really big fan of this. I've watched this so many times, and so it definitely had to make the top 10. So it made it into the number 10 slot.
Yeah, I think that would be a lot of people's top 10. I want to say about that one. I rewatched it again a couple days ago too.
Okay.
And you know, a lot of those things you mentioned are really, really great. It's just
Mhm.
that like I don't know if it's sort of a product of the 80s too, but just some of it feels like the frankly, it's Bill Paxton. I
Okay.
love Bill Paxton. He's an actor. I've seen so much of his work, and I'm a
Right.
big fan.
Mhm.
But none of his lines are really funny, at least these
Okay.
days.
Okay.
And it kind of was. He
Okay.
was kind of an annoying character when I watched it recently.
Ah.
I've only
Hmm.
seen it maybe 3 times in my life, but
Okay.
so it doesn't really add to the film when he's giving these really obnoxious lines that are just frankly aren't funny, and there's so many of them.
Right.
But it is a very good film. I think I got it like 3.5 stars. So I mean, it's
Right.
one I've seen a few times and do really like. Yeah.
Yeah, comedy, like anything, is very subjective because I laugh at every
Yeah.
line he delivers. So,
Really? Okay.
yeah, I do.
Could have been
I
the
love
mood I
all of
was
his
in.
lines.
I don't know.
Maybe, yeah, that could have something to do with it. All right, let's move on now. I think we're at your number 10. So, rounding out our top tens now. What do you have there, Bert?
Yeah, well, I can't go with A Quiet Place 2, so that got
Right.
knocked out. So I think I'm going to go with actually The Lost World, Jurassic Park
Oh,
2.
okay. Sure.
Yeah, yeah. And as I alluded to before, that especially that first half of the film is really, really great, and it's just some just absolutely iconic scenes,
Hmm.
particularly the baby dino leading up to the RV going over the
Yes.
cliff. I mean, it's a little bit preposterous, but it's a great scene. It's very
Sure.
intense, great sound
Sure.
effects, everything.
Yep.
And there's some great new creatures here and a lot of
Mm.
great interactions with them and
Hmm.
some fun stuff. It's an excellent film, by pretty much all measures. I just didn't love sort of that last act or maybe that last half as much as the first. But yeah,
Sure.
just some great follow up to that, tremendous first film.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great. Well, now we're going to move on to my number 10, which is going to be a Marvel movie. The furthest that Marvel thus far, the MCU, has gone into the horror genre is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of
Oh,
Madness.
that's on my list. Oh yeah.
Is it really? Okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Big fan of the Sam Raimi, of course, coming in, after Evil Dead. Spider-Man, of course, kind
Mhm.
of kicked off the whole comic book craze. And then years later, Marvel comes a knocking again. They need the master back. And this is funny because Doctor Strange was actually a character he wanted to direct a movie about before Spider-Man. This was kind of his
Really?
favorite comic book
Oh,
character
okay. Wow.
all along, and so he kind of had
Huh.
always wanted to do this. So Kevin Feige, president of Marvel Studios, they knew each other because Feige was a producer back in the Spider-Man days. And so I
Okay.
guess he kind of always had Raimi in the back of his mind, like, yeah, if we do a Doctor Strange 2, I want him to do it. So they got him to do it, and I think he pulled off a fantastic, wacky movie. I mean, this movie, it's pretty divisive. A lot of people don't really care for this movie at all.
Really?
I just think,
Huh.
yeah, a lot of people weren't really into it, especially I think coming off that first Doctor Strange, which does have a much more serious tone. This
Yeah,
one,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
leaning into that Evil Dead kind of almost comedy horror. There's some
Yeah, yeah.
genuinely scary moments in it, but
Right.
a lot of it
Yeah,
is more kind of tongue in cheek, I guess you could say.
sure.
So it's a lot of fun though. I just have a blast watching it. It reminds me so much of those Evil Dead movies. A lot of the camera work is very stylish and a lot of flourishes there. Um, I think the effects hold up really well, even though there's quite a bit of CGI here. They're still doing a lot of makeup prosthetics too, and I think Cumberbatch is maybe at his best here that he's ever been, as the character. Same with Elizabeth Olsen. I really liked what they did with Scarlet Witch and bringing
She
her
was
to
really
more of a
good.
villainous character like
Yeah,
she is in the
yeah.
comics. So
Okay.
like that a lot. I like that they gave Rachel McAdams a bigger role in this one, even than the first Doctor Strange. I thought that was a really good move.
Right.
So a lot of stuff that's a lot of fun, especially for
Hmm.
comic book fans like me. All these characters
Yeah.
like Professor X coming into it and all that was a lot of fun to see that. So
Yeah.
I have a lot of fun watching this. I've actually enjoyed it more every time I've seen it, I think. So
Nice.
it's now probably among my favorite, might even be in my top 10 MCU movies. I don't know, I have to reassess that
Wow.
list, but yeah, it's a one I have a lot of fun with. I hope Marvel continues to explore horror because they did that really cool special on Disney Plus,
Yeah.
Werewolf by Night.
Yeah, that was good.
That was a lot of fun too. So
Just
who
too
knows?
short.
Maybe we'll see more of that in the future. But yeah, this is
Yeah.
definitely one of my favorites they've done lately. So
Good
that's
pick.
rounding out my top
Yeah.
10. All right, Bert, now we're into your number 11 pick. What do you have there?
Okay. One that is in nobody's list, probably except mine, and that is a film from the Ghostbusters franchise.
Oh.
I hated part two. It's not part two. It is the next, I guess the next one that came along, which is the 2016 one
Yes,
with the
reboot. Yeah.
ladies
Right,
that
right.
is much derided. And the thing is, I probably could do like a defending bad films because a lot of it is the comedy. I mean, I feel like
Mm,
Ghostbusters is best when it's funny
yeah,
because the special effects don't blow me away.
sure.
I mean, they were decent for 1984 or five
Or
when the
yeah.
first one came out.
Hmm.
And the effects here too are fine. But it's just this one for some reason, I'm laughing at least through the first two-thirds of the film.
Yeah,
And it's got some decent action, but really it's
good.
just because it's so funny. So
Yeah.
for a horror sequel, and especially what they're up against, I think they get a bad rap. Of course, I
Yeah.
guess if no one's laughing at their jokes, then it is what it is. But
Right.
I like it quite a bit.
Yeah, I didn't hate that one as much as everyone else. We did a Ghostbusters podcast where we talked about all the Ghostbusters movies recently, right around the time Frozen Empire came out. So check that out on the channel now to get our full thoughts on all things Ghostbusters. All right, moving on to my number 11. I'm going to go back into the zombie world with 28 Weeks Later.
Okay.
28 Days Later, I think, is a great zombie movie. Another kind of one of those very low budget films, down and dirty kind of filmmaking. Danny Boyle directed that. Cillian Murphy starred. It was kind of his
Yeah.
breakout role. And the sequel came along a few years later. And again, bigger budget. They went more of an action route with it. But yet I felt more connected to the characters in this one than I even did the
Hmm.
first one. Jeremy Renner, one of my favorite actors, he's kind of the lead here,
Oh,
and
okay.
he does a great job. It's
Oh,
before he got the role of Hawkeye and all that, and kind of really
yeah.
exploded.
Okay.
But it's really good what he's doing.
Hmm.
Very, very, emotionally engaging throughout the film. Well paced, just a really good kind of action oriented faster paced type of a zombie movie. So
Oh,
if you
okay.
like 28 Days Later, again, this one's pretty
It's all right.
different, but
Okay. Okay.
Bert, I think you would probably like this better.
Okay.
It's kind of more
It's
up
good
your
to know.
alley. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely worth checking out. They just announced they're making 28 Years Later
Yeah.
now.
I saw that.
I think Cillian Murphy's back.
Really?
I
Okay.
know Danny Boyle's back directing, so I'm
Okay.
curious to see what that
Wow.
ends up being. But
Yeah.
yeah, this one definitely is a sequel that is worth seeking out. 28 Weeks Later.
Okay.
I guess they skipped months. Went from days to weeks to years. Maybe we'll get a prequel eventually,
Yeah,
but
right.
we'll see. So yeah, 28 Weeks Later. That's going to be my number 11. Okay, Bert. What is your 12? What is there?
Going with Paranormal Activity, the marked ones.
Oh, okay. Now, what number is this in the
Oh,
series?
I'd have to look.
Hmm.
This might be six.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's six.
Okay.
Six.
Okay. Cool.
And very scary film. It's kind of a new location. The first five are all sort of suburbia,
Right.
set in kind of suburbia.
Hmm.
This one is kind of in the inner city, I think of
Mm.
LA.
Hmm,
and there's a lot
okay.
of like the leads are mostly Spanish speaking. I mean, I think they
Okay.
do speak English, but you know what I mean. That might be like
Right.
ESL
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
kind of thing.
Mhm.
And so it's also found footage, but just kind of a fresh take on all of it. And
Yeah.
so I won't give anything away, but very well made.
Mm.
Some really good scares,
Hmm.
and a little bit of a tie-in to the prior 5 films,
Okay.
but just so good. I mean, I got it at 4 stars. I mean, I'm telling you,
Awesome.
good stuff.
Great, great, great.
Yeah.
Excellent stuff. All right. We're gonna go now with another Guillermo del Toro film that I like a lot called Blade 2.
Okay, right.
The
You've talked about this one.
Blade
Yeah.
franchise. Yeah, the Blade
The
franchise
only
is
one he
interesting.
directed, right?
That's right. That's right. Yep.
Okay.
Yep, it
Yeah.
was. It was the only one he directed. Yeah, the first one's fine. It's a solid kind of introduction to the character. I like the first one quite a bit. There's some memorable scenes in it for sure, but the second one just upped the ante.
Okay.
It really he did a great job with the action, with the creatures. Again, he loves, all these weird creatures. Del Toro always does great with those. So those are really well done. Wesley Snipes, I feel like, is more comfortable in the role. Same with the late Chris Christopherson, is in this as well. Really like him in that part. And then Ron Perlman, who's been in I think most of Del Toro's movies. Of course, he's Hellboy, and all that, but he plays a
Yeah.
really fun role in
Okay.
this one here too.
Huh.
And so, yeah, this one's cool. It's got a bigger cast, more action, bigger, better effects, and it's one that I've enjoyed quite a bit. It's easily my favorite of the three Blade films. So yeah, Blade 2 is going to be next for me.
Gotcha. Quick question.
Yep.
And spoiler alert for Deadpool and Wolverine,
Oh yeah,
but I think you gave that film like half a star.
yeah,
Is
right.
your half a star based on the Return of Blade?
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah. Just seeing Wesley Snipes again as Blade is the only reason I gave that movie
Uh,
any credit at all.
yeah.
Um,
Okay.
but
All right.
yeah. Only ever gonna be one Blade. Um,
Right.
all right. What are we on now? 12 you're free or 13, I think this is for you. Yeah, 13.
Yep. And I'm gonna go with Zombieland 2, which is called
Oh,
Zombieland Double Tap.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I've only seen this once. I need to go back and rewatch it, but
Hmm.
it's another sort of fun romp with the same actors. And that's about all I can remember about it, honestly.
Yeah,
It's just not quite as funny as the first one,
right.
and as rewarding. The first one I felt was pretty fresh,
Yeah, yeah.
and there's been a lot of horror comedies, and so love
Hmm.
that one. And
Sure.
this one's pretty good too. I mean, kind of more of the same, you know?
Right, right. Yeah. That's how I
Yeah,
felt. I wasn't very impressed with it. There's some funny
gotcha.
moments, but not as many. The first one's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
it's too good. It's one of
yeah.
those that's like perfect movies.
Right.
So to make a sequel to it is always difficult. And
Yeah.
they did a fine job, but it didn't quite live up to the first. Um, all right, let's jump to my 13. We're gonna go back to A Quiet Place with their recent film Day One, which
Oh,
I know you didn't care for at all.
no. It was a bit like torture watching that. Go ahead. I don't want to knock it down. Go ahead.
I know,
Build
I
it up.
know. Yeah, our opinions are different on this one. Did we do a full review of this? I feel like we
I can't
did.
I can't remember. Days turn into weeks.
Right.
Can't remember.
I think we did when it came out. I think we talked about all the Quiet Place movies. Maybe can't
I
remember, but
I think we did too. Yeah.
um, yeah, I really liked it. I thought it was a really unique way to do a prequel. I think your expectations were kind of high. Mine were pretty high too, just because those first two movies are so great.
Well,
Um,
the trailer sells
yeah,
something
right,
different.
sure. Yeah, yeah, I get you. Yeah, the
The
trailer
trailer
did sell
sells
a much
the
bigger
big
movie.
yeah, it sells like what we got at the beginning of Quiet Place 2, like more like that
Yes,
kind of stuff.
yes,
So in
exactly.
fairness, I was trying to trust the
No,
marketing team.
you're absolutely right. I absolutely get that. But I was kind of delighted that it was a little more intimate, that it was
Mhm.
very character centric, two characters really in this vast urban jungle, having to deal with this situation. I just really liked the character. I liked Lupita
Okay.
Nyong'o, what she did, and Joseph Quinn. I liked their performances a lot. Um, I'm actually really excited to watch it again and see,
Mhm.
if it holds up as well as I remember it, because I remember it quite fondly after seeing it in theaters. So, Quiet Place Day One makes my number 13. So now, Bert, we're on to your 14. What do you have at that place?
I can't take Aliens. You took that one. So
Yeah, that's right.
going back to the well, Paranormal Activity 3.
Okay. All
Sorry, I
right.
usually like to have variety, but the fact is
Sure.
that these movies are so scary that I think in this season it's important, worth I guess hammering that how
Sure.
much I like these films.
Absolutely. Now's your chance to
Uh,
talk about them, so go for
right, yeah, exactly.
it.
But this one is one of those that's kind of set in suburbia again, and it's like the security cameras. This one might be one of the more scary ones out of the seven. There's
Mm-hmm.
just some great bits, none of which I'll give away here.
Okay.
But just a lot of fun, some good scares. Yeah.
Awesome. Great stuff. I'm gonna go back to a well I've already been in too. It's Evil Dead. I'm going with Evil Dead 2
Okay. All
because
right.
again, it's just so zany and weird and wacky. And it's kind of
Yeah.
interesting, the second one, because not many people had really seen the first one. It was so low budget, I don't even think it got a wide release.
Mm,
So the second one kind of basically is a remake of the first one. They kind of retell the whole first movie in the first like 5 or 10 minutes,
exactly. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then they kind of expand on it from there. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's cool. You can just jump in with two if you don't want to, bother with watching one. Even though I think one is really fun. It's kind of fun to just watch where it comes from, and like
Sure.
kind of follow
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But yeah, two is really good. It's got some of the wackiest stuff I've ever seen. The laughing scene where all the taxidermy comes to life and laughs.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
such a
So
memorable
Sam Raimi.
scene. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's got some wacky ideas. But it was cool again listening to the commentary this week on the second one, hearing about, oh yeah, here's how we did that shot. And one of them's like they had the camera mounted to this little dirt bike that they're driving through the cabin, and like
That's great.
just the craziest stuff that they would do. And the effects were they did have a bigger budget here, so they were able to hire a guy to do stop motion effects, and they had all these different things going
Yeah.
on that are just really fun to watch. I just like watching the kind of craft that goes into that is really cool. So Evil Dead 2 is at
Yeah.
my number 14. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. I just want to comment on that real quick. The taxidermy comes to life also in Sam Raimi's Drag Me to Hell.
Oh, that's right.
Whi-
Yes.
which is one
Yes.
of my favorite. I think that's in my top 10, just general horror of all time.
Sure.
Not non,
Yeah.
well, actually, I think I do have a horror comedy. I
Yeah.
don't know. That's a fine line on that one
Sure.
because that one's truly, truly scary.
It is.
But yeah, same thing. And I do like Evil Dead 1 and 2.
Yeah.
There's a lot I like about them. It's just, it is a
Hmm.
bit much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
what they're
It's
doing
not for
there.
everyone, for sure. It's a bit of an acquired taste, but I enjoy them quite a bit. All right, Bert, we're at your number 15 now. So winding down towards the
Okay.
bottom of our list, what do you have there?
All right. Well, not Hellboy 2. And
Right.
I'm gonna go with I'll take another Jurassic film,
Oh,
Jurassic Park 3.
all right.
Yeah, and so much fun from start to finish on this one.
Yeah,
I think it's probably the shortest Jurassic movie,
it
right?
is. Yeah.
But
Yep.
it's just kind of just nonstop thrills.
Yep.
It's just some great stuff. You return of some of the characters
Hmm.
from the first one. Yeah, we've talked about it at length, but I really enjoy this one, and I've seen it numerous times. But some some there's some decent actual scares too, I feel like.
Sure.
But I just love it's just kind of like a I think I said before, but this sort of defines like if what a Jurassic Park ride would be like. And I know there is an
Right.
actual ride,
Yeah.
but I'm
Right.
saying
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
like you got a little bit of everything and it's all pretty exciting and then it's
That's
over.
true.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. That movie. I think it's underrated because it's easily my second favorite after the first, and it does have some really great, like that whole pterodactyl cage scene
Yeah.
and the boat scene with the Spinosaurus in the water.
A lot of variety. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and all the raptors
Yeah.
it's all about kind of their intelligence and how smart they are, how they'll kind of plant
Yeah.
traps for people. It's
Yeah.
really, really
Yeah.
interesting. So yeah, that's a
Right.
great pick. All right. Now we're moving on to my 15, which is going to be Predators. Back into the Predator franchise.
Oh,
That's the
okay.
one set on
I
another
haven't seen that
planet.
one.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's the only one I haven't seen of the Predator films.
Okay. Yeah, it's definitely one of my favorites. It would probably be, I guess, third after Prey and the original. I liked it better than two, definitely better than The Predator. It's all on another planet. So all these different
Oh,
humans are kind of grabbed from Earth and
okay.
taken to the kind of like the I don't know, game preserve of the predators, if you will, where they
Oh,
kind of like
okay.
practice hunting. And so there's more predators than just one. There's multiple predators hunting all these humans down, but they're all like most of them are soldiers or assassins or they're all like the most deadly humans basically that the predators have grabbed from Earth to kind of, practice on. So it's cool. It's a good mix. Adrian Brody as an action star, I never would have thought would work, but for some reason he totally
It
pulls it
does.
off. I mean,
Wow. Okay.
it's a really good performance.
Okay.
A lot of other good actors in there. Alicia Braga from I Am Legend. She's been in a few different things. She's a really good actress. And Topher Grace is in it.
Oh, okay. I like him.
Danny Trejo.
Oh, sure.
It's got a really good cast, ensemble cast, big cast,
Huh.
and yeah, it's definitely worth checking out. It's really cool. Robert Rodriguez produced it. He didn't direct it, but he
Okay.
produced it, and it's
Right.
really good Predator movie.
Okay.
So that's my number
Nice.
15. Bert, we're now under your 16. What do you have there?
Okay. I'm gonna go with The Boy Part Two, which is called Brahms The Boy Part Two. Let me
Ah,
explain.
okay.
There's a movie called The Boy from
Uh-huh.
2016. You've not heard of this one?
I don't think so.
Okay. It's a great premise. This young lady goes to she's in England. She goes to become the nanny for this couple's young boy. I think the boy is
Mm,
supposed to be like 6 or something.
hmm
So she goes there, shows up for the job. Well, the boy is a porcelain doll, except the parents are acting like he's real. And
Okay.
so she's trying to get a grasp around it. And then, of course, weird things start happening.
Yeah.
And it's got a great ending. It's got like an
Mm,
ending you would not see coming.
hmm
So that's The Boy. And then the second one, um, basically a different family comes across the doll again.
Okay.
And it's sort of what happens to that family. And it's a good follow-up. So this isn't as good as the
Okay.
first one. The first one, if nothing else, definitely watch that one. It's not
Yeah.
like Megan. It's not like that kind of
Sure.
doll. It's a
Right.
porcelain doll. It's like, did that just move? Like that kind of thing.
Right.
And
Okay.
it's very effective. A
Yeah.
little bit scary, and like I said, great ending. But the
Yeah.
sequel's pretty good, so I wanted to shout out to that. And it's
Okay.
it's a 3-star film, a decent
Okay.
follow-up, but doesn't have that great surprise ending.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, cool. I'll check it out. All right, we're gonna go with one that is definitely strongly in horror. I know a lot of these I've picked have been like action horror, comic book horror, comedy horror. Go back to a true horror movie, part of a very popular franchise. I just watched this the other night. It's A Nightmare on Elm Street 3
Oh,
Dream Warriors.
okay. I don't think I've seen
Okay.
that.
Okay. This is actually a really good sequel to the
Really?
original Nightmare on Elm Street. I really like the first Nightmare on Elm Street. I think it's a solid kind of one of those fun kind of it's a
Yeah,
different from just your typical slasher, I feel like, because there's a
sure.
psychological element to it.
Yeah, yeah, that's for sure.
Freddy Krueger, of course, one of the most iconic horror characters of all time, played brilliantly by Robert Englund. Um,
Right.
the second one I watched, it was just kind of a throwaway sequel. It wasn't bad, I wouldn't say, but it wasn't great either. But this third one, I was really impressed by because they
Yeah.
bring the girl back from the first one who survived, and it's this whole mix of characters all in this insane asylum,
Oh.
and you find out they're the children of the people who killed Freddy Krueger originally.
Oh,
And
okay.
so he's tormenting all of them. That's why they're in this insane asylum. And they, through one of the characters played by Patricia Arquette, are able to kind of dream walk together. So they can kind of enter the dream together and fight him. And so that's why it's called Dream Warriors. So
Oh,
it's kind
gotcha.
of, it's dealing with these psychological issues these characters are going through, but just a fun watch. It's got plenty of blood and gore as you would expect from any Freddy Krueger movie, but it's got that character dynamic that really worked. That I thought
Okay.
was really good. So yeah, I was kind of unexpectedly surprised by this one. It was really fun to watch and a great continuation of that kind of story. You get more backstory on Freddy Krueger and where he comes from and all that. So yeah, I would highly recommend if you're a fan of that series or the first one, that third one. I would recommend checking out.
Nice. I'm not really a slasher film
Yeah,
guy. I
I'm
mean,
not really either.
25 years ago I was maybe,
Sure,
but films have evolved, I think, quite a
sure,
bit in the horror genre.
for sure.
So it's interesting to hear that you like that one.
Yeah, yeah, I really did. All right, Bert, we're at your 17. What's there?
I'm going to go with a film from the Insidious
Oh,
series.
yeah.
There's five of these films now.
Hmm.
The first one's really good, like, very, very scary.
Yeah.
Um, but so I watched all the sequels for the first time actually, and I'm going to go with the fourth one or the
Oh,
fourth film.
okay.
It's called The Last Key.
Ah.
And this film's here. Have you seen any of the Insidious films?
I get these confused. Is this I think I've seen Conjuring. Conjuring is the
Conjuring?
one with Patrick Wilson.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
And the reason why you're getting them confused is because Insidious films are also starring Patrick Wilson.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Conjuring is based on a true story, though, or
It's, I
supposedly
mean,
based
allegedly
on a
true.
true,
Yeah. A
right?
real couple and that kind of thing.
Right,
Yeah.
right, right.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I have not seen Insidious yet.
And then this is a James Wan project. He kicked
Right.
off
Okay.
a lot of these
Yes.
kind of films, of course.
Right.
He's been sort of the mastermind in the last
Hmm.
15 years or so of a
Yeah.
lot of franchises. But
Hmm.
interestingly enough, Patrick Wilson's in, I think, all of them except this one.
Oh.
The reason I picked this one isn't because he's not in it, because he's
Okay.
really good.
Yeah.
It's just that I felt like all these sequels are about the same. This one's maybe a little bit scarier,
Mm-hmm.
and it's got a little bit of different creature work than
Okay.
the other ones have.
Yeah.
And so I guess I put that one slightly ahead of the others. But all the sequels are decently scary, but
Hmm.
they're not great. They're like 2.5,
Yeah.
3 stars.
Okay.
So, but this one's maybe a little bit more unique.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool. All right. Moving on to my 17. I'm going back to the actiony vibe with the horror films. Resident Evil Extinction. This is the third Resident Evil film.
Oh, really? Okay.
Post-apocalyptic zombie movie in the desert. Which I love like movies set in the desert. I feel like the desert is very cinematic. I like the Dune movies so much. It's just all
Yeah,
desert.
right.
Um, but this one's really cool. This one's a lot of fun. Easily was my favorite. When I watched through these Resident Evil movies, I don't really care for them. But this third one kind of stood out as like the one that was kind of cool because it was a
Huh.
unique setting. A lot of them are like in
Yeah,
the city or something.
right.
I like the desert setting. I like the action and I felt was better. I kind of upped their game there. The effects, the zombies, all of it. And yeah, Mia Jovovich, she's such a great actress. I've liked her in everything since Fifth Element. Um,
Gotcha.
I wish she had better roles. She tends to not pick the best movies to be in, but this one was really good. I would
Hmm.
recommend this. Actually, if you don't even want to watch the first two, just throw on the third one and just have a fun time
Okay.
watching a cool zombie action movie. So yeah,
Yeah.
Resident Evil Extinction would be my next pick.
Yeah. And once again, that's interesting to hear you say, because from what I've seen in the first one, it's just not really for me, but maybe
Yeah.
that one would be good. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's the one, every once in a while a franchise will put out a really good one, even if the rest aren't as great. And that one to me was definitely the best.
Okay.
All right, Bert, now we're on to your 18. What do you have there?
I'm going to go with Final Destination 5.
Okay. I've only seen the first one of these. I know there's a lot
Oh,
of them.
good. So you know the concept at
Oh,
least.
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think most people are aware of what the concept is that
Right.
death will catch up to you eventually if you happen to have some weird like time travel moment when
Right.
you're supposed to die the first time.
Yes, yes.
And this is, I think, the most recent one, and I think they're working
Hmm.
on another one.
Okay.
This one actually goes all the way back to 2011.
Hmm.
But it's it's a lot of silly nonsense, but it's
Hmm.
also kind of fun at the
Yeah,
same time.
sure.
This one's, I think, bigger and better than its predecessors.
Okay.
And so, if you like that concept, I think
Hmm.
that you really can't find a better one than this one. There's some
Cool.
really great special effects and
Hmm.
like green screen effects, and
Hmm.
how they made these crazy sets when
Yeah.
when the disaster stuff is happening
Right, right.
is pretty incredible. But yeah, it's a fun one.
Cool, cool. All right, I'll check that one out. Next up, I'm gonna kind of stay in the same vein. These are kind of I could consider them like sister franchises, Resident Evil and Underworld.
Oh, right,
Both
right,
are both are kind of just schlocky, kind of,
yeah,
actiony horror adjacent
yeah.
type
Shoot 'em ups.
franchises. Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
so Underworld, I felt basically the same. The first two, I was like, I don't even know if I want to finish these. And then the third
Yeah.
one, I really liked. And the third
Really?
one, it's another one
Huh.
where they change up the whole formula, where the third one is actually all set way in the past. It's
Hmm.
essentially a prequel. There's like bookend scenes that kind of connect it to the modern storyline,
Oh.
but it's all new cast. The guy I know you like, Michael Sheen, is in it,
Oh yeah, yeah. The
the
bartender
lead.
from yeah,
Yeah,
Passengers.
right.
Yeah.
Passengers. Yeah, we just talked about him. And so it's called Rise of the Lycans because it's all about, the Underworld franchise is focused more on the vampire side, but they're at war with the werewolves. And this one kind of covers the werewolf history between the werewolves and vampires and all that. So it's really cool. It's kind of set in like medieval times. It's got these big battle sequences and production design is really good. Really, really, again, just really good performances, very intense kind of performances. So, yeah, that was one that, again, I was impressed by. The rest of the franchise, I didn't really care at all for, but that
Yeah.
third Underworld really did it for me. So, if you have a chance, again, since it's a prequel, you don't really have to have seen any of the others. You can just
Okay.
pop in the third one and enjoy some werewolf vampire action. If that's what you're into. So
I have
yeah,
a theory, by the way,
hmm
about films like that. I think that they strike gold with the first one.
Yeah,
It's a new thing,
right.
and then we get a hastily made sequel, which
Yes,
pours
it's true.
which gets much less box office.
Yeah,
Then they say, well, if we're gonna do another one, we got to change it up. So then we
yep,
get to change up for the third one.
exactly.
Then you get another hastily made sequel.
Right. It's true. That
Yeah.
basically exactly describes both of those franchises. So
Yeah, and I
you're
will say
spot
that the
on.
Paranormal Activity films, they came
Mm.
out like every year for a while,
Wow.
like from 2008 all the way through like I don't know, 2012 or 13 and
Yeah.
then a few years and then the last one. But you would think that would be the case that they would be hastily made,
Yeah.
but like I said, I they're up on the pedestal for me.
Yeah. Sure.
So maybe the exception.
Cool. Excellent. Okay, so that was my 18. Now we're on to your number 19, Bert. What do you have there?
I'm going with Happy Death Day to You.
Oh, I've heard of these. I haven't seen these.
This is another one where this is mostly credit to the first one. Like the second one's
Ah,
decent, but I'll explain.
right.
I have to explain again. Essentially, this is by the way, Jason Blum. It's one of his
Oh,
films. Blumhouse Productions has done a lot of
yeah,
these too. They've been
right.
kind of a forerunner, with these recent films, and some of them
Yeah,
are pretty good.
yeah.
And so the first film called Happy Death Day, honestly, it looked like it was going to be pretty terrible, but it's a time loop film, and I watch every
Oh,
one of those. I'll at least give it a
yeah, yeah.
chance. You know what I mean?
Sure, sure.
Regardless of budget and all that. And there's no known actors in these films really per
Mm.
se.
hmm
But I'll just read here. It says it follows a college student who is murdered on the night of her birthday, but begins reliving the day repeatedly. At which point she sets out to find the killer and stop her death.
Mm. Cool.
Yeah, yeah. And that first one, man, if you can seek it out,
Yeah.
you like time loop films, right? I
Oh,
mean,
sure. Yeah.
it's not the best one, but it's
Sure.
certainly worth seeking out.
Okay.
And all the stuff that happens. It's honestly, it's kind of a romantic comedy too. There's a lot of
Mm.
comedy in this. Is
Okay.
It's not strictly a horror.
Right.
It's more silly than that.
Okay.
And so
Okay.
I get a lot of fun out of that one.
Yeah.
So then the sequel, Happy Death Day to You,
Uh-huh.
um, is what happens is another character that she interacted with in the first film.
Ah.
They are also reliving the same day, or at least they start to
Oh.
relive the same day. So it's
Mm.
almost like it
Okay.
transfers to that person.
Yeah.
So and
Yeah.
it's decent, we're not
Okay.
talking, 4 or 5 stars or anything.
Right. Right.
The first one's the one you really want, but I still had to include
Yeah.
the second one on my toward the tail end of my 20.
Yeah. Now, so that in the sequel, they're living that same day again, but now we're seeing it from their perspective, basically, or is it another day? Is it like the next
It's been
day?
a while since I've seen it.
Okay.
I think it's a different
Okay.
day. I think it takes off and goes forward from there.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I
Okay.
don't think it's
That's
like
cool.
different camera angles. I could be wrong
Right.
though. It's been
Hmm.
a couple years or so since I've seen it.
Yeah. It's a cool idea.
Yeah, yeah.
Great. Yeah. I'll definitely seek it out. Okay. Now we're moving on to my number 19. So bottom two here. I'm going to go with the Ghostbusters movie as well. Not Ghostbusters 2016, not the second one. I'm going to go with Afterlife.
Okay. Yeah, that one's
Afterlife,
decent.
yeah, it's probably my favorite of the sequels that they've
Gotcha.
made. It's,
It's on my list.
yeah, it's not as horror-y or comedic. It's a little bit more dramatic,
It's
which
true.
I
Yeah.
think was an
Yeah.
interesting way to go. There's still, plenty of humor throughout it and things like
Right.
that.
It actually is quite
Um,
funny. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and there's great effects. The effects I think are look really good. But yeah, Jason Reitman, son of Ivan Reitman, who directed the
Hmm.
original, comes in and
Yeah. That's
made a
cool.
film that was a lot more sentimental, but paid respect to the original and told a unique story at the same time. Didn't feel like just a rehash of everything we've seen before.
Yeah.
So I like that one. I like Paul Rudd in that. I like the young
Uh-huh.
cast,
Yeah.
McKenna Grace and Finn Wolfhard. They all do a good job. So yeah, I like that Afterlife movie. That was pretty good. Um,
Nice.
all right, so that's my 19. Bert, this is your last one, rounding out our top 20 lists of horror sequels. So, what is your final pick?
I got to go with the Cube series.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Cube 2
Cube
Hypercube
2.
is what it's called.
Hypercube. Okay. Cool.
This kind of reminds me of Evil Dead because you got the first film, the
Yeah.
characters wake up, they're in this giant cube.
Right.
Every wall looks the same as the ceiling and the floor,
Uh-huh.
and in the middle of every wall or ceiling or floor is a hatch,
Yeah.
and you can open the hatch and go through, but you might face peril when you go
Right.
through that.
Right.
And so the trick is finding out why they're there, how to get out of the cube if it's even possible,
Mm.
how big the cube is, because every room you go into next is just like the first,
Hmm.
which
Hmm.
when they filmed it, at least the first one, when they filmed it, they only had one cube even as a set. So they had to use
Right.
tricks to make it look like
Right.
they were going into all these additional rooms when really it's
Yeah.
just the same cube or same
Yeah.
room. So it's very small budget.
Hmm.
Um, but I like these sort of social experiment kind of things, and that's what we get here. So anyway, so the
Right.
first one's that's premise. Well, that's the premise of the second one too.
Oh,
Just
okay.
maybe slightly bigger budget, but sort of
Uh-huh.
in different kill rooms, I guess you could say,
Mm.
than the
Yeah.
first one.
Right.
But again, and they expand the cube and what it's about a little bit in
Mm.
some ways too that I won't give away. But if
Okay.
you like the first cube,
Yeah.
second one is more of it.
Okay.
Maybe even slightly better, a little
Okay.
more higher production quality. So
Cool. Cool. Yeah, I
yeah.
might check that one out because I did like that first one. I thought it was a cool premise. So
Uh-huh.
yeah, maybe I'll check out the other ones. I didn't really even know there were
There's
other
three.
cubes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Cool. Awesome. All right, rounding out my list now, my number 20 pick. It's a family film. My family watches these movies all the time. It's Hotel Transylvania
Oh,
2.
nice. Yeah, that is a good
Um,
one.
yeah, those are fun. I mean, they're really good. Genndy Tartakovsky, who directed it, he's been part of some of my favorite things in the past couple decades. Samurai Jack, that TV series ran for 5 seasons. He did
Oh,
all that. He did the Star Wars Clone Wars series. He did Primal, which is a great animated series. And
okay.
he's behind these. They're kind of just funny, kind of silly takes on these classic monsters. You've got
Yeah.
Dracula, and you've got the Invisible Man, and you've got Frankenstein, and they're all voiced by Adam Sandler and his whole crew.
David
Kevin
Spade and all them.
James, yeah,
Yeah.
David Spade, Dana Carvey's in there, and the sequel brings in Megan Mullally and Nick Offerman, and Mel Brooks is even in there in the second one. So yeah, I think the first two are great. The third one is to me where things kind of started to fall off.
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, the third and fourth I didn't care for, but
Yeah. Okay.
the first two I think are really good. They tell really good family friendly stories, and they have a lot of good jokes that I laugh at a lot. So definitely check out that one if you
Yeah.
have little ones running around. They'll get a kick out of it. So that's it. Another draft list is done for horror sequels. Unique lists. And you took some of mine, I took some of yours, but
Yeah.
I think these are really solid lists. I'm curious to see, which lists people are going to gravitate towards. Let us know whose list you prefer. Which list would you take to a desert island if you could only take 20 horror sequels? Which list are you going to take? Let us know in the comments. We want to have a conversation with you. That's what this is really all about. We want to talk with you about your favorite movies. I try and respond as quickly as I can to all the comments on YouTube. And so, leave a comment and I'll try to give you a response as quickly as I can. Bert and I are both on Letterboxd as well. So if you want to read a little bit more of our reviews on all these movies, check us out on Letterboxd. Those links are in the description. Just click on the link to our Letterboxd accounts. You can follow us there. I'll give you a follow back. I've got over 200 followers now, and I'm following, I think, about 300 people on there now. So that's kind of cool to see that
Yeah.
community grow on Letterboxd with the real world. Um, Bert, it was a blast as always, man. These are really fun. There's, again, several on your list I haven't seen. I know I think there were a few on mine you hadn't seen as well. So
Yeah.
that'll be fun. Maybe over the next couple of weeks as we approach All Hallows Eve, I'll pop in some of these in the evening and check them out. Thanks again, man, for joining us. It was fun.
Yeah, yeah. Some of the point of that is definitely to get some movies out there maybe people haven't heard of and
Yeah.
get them interested in the premise, and know that at least one other person liked them.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, there's some of these that some people are going to go, "What? I can't believe that even made your list." And other people go, "Someone else likes that movie?" That's always
Yeah,
fun to see and to have. Again, that's why we want to have the conversation in the comments
yeah.
about that kind of thing. We're on Facebook. We've got a group on Facebook. So if you want to join that, let me know. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, on the Real World, so you can follow us there. Be on the lookout for new reviews, new reaction videos. I'm going to start trying to do more of the Blu-ray reviews. I haven't done those in a while, but I'm going to try to get back on that as soon as I can. And join us next week for another podcast. It's going to be a fun one. So thank you all again. And again, thanks, Bert, for joining me. We will see you next time right here on The Real World.